So welcome everybody. Oh. Okay, struggles my screen set up again. No worry. Welcome everybody to the EOcafe. Today we're talking about building relationships with Africa. A lot is happening in Africa, so it should be very interesting. Before we get going, let me just remind you regarding the rules of the cafe. So please keep your microphones off unless I specifically ask you to join in the conversation. You're very welcome to keep your cameras on. It's always good to see people. Please put any questions into the chat so that we can see what's coming up. But if we take the question, then I would generally ask you to open your microphone and join us and put the question yourself. Because for anyone new to this, the idea is we're having an informal meeting, an informal conversation in the cafe with a lot of guests sitting around listening to us. And as we go on, then the conversation widens and more people can come in and join the conversation. The formula seems to work, so we haven't changed it very much over the time we've been doing this. So today, Africa, and I'm very pleased to welcome three distinguished guests, all representing different organizations in Africa. Firstly, we have Dr. Tidiane Ouattara, who is with the African Union Commission. Then we have Professor Kamal Labassi, who is president of AfSA, the African Association of Remote Sensitive Environment, and Dr. Labale Toure, who is president of the Geomatics network that bring professionals together throughout Africa. So before we start and I introduce the subject, maybe each of our guests would just like to introduce themselves, just say a few words about themselves, their backgrounds, their interests, just so that people know you a little bit better. Tidiane, can I ask you to lead on that?
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. This is the most difficult part when you have to introduce yourself. And I would say I'm Tidiane Ouattara. Modestly, I'm leading the African Outer Space Program. What does it mean? The governance, the policy, and the programmatic areas of the space in Africa is under my modest responsibility with the support from member states and institutions. I'm also coordinating GMES and Africa, which is a joint program between Africa and Europe, funded by the European Commission on Earth observation, involving more than 120 institutions from 5 African countries. My background, I'm expert in EO, remote sensing for some people, and I occupied several positions in Canada and now with the African Union Commission. I'm here to share my modest knowledge, but also to learn a lot with from all of you. And I don't know what to say. Experience on policy, program management, strategic, I would say, approach towards end users, etc. Let's talk about. This is coffee. It is open. Let's drink our coffee while talking together. Thank you very much.
That's great. I think you've been quite involved in the development of the strategy that we'll come on to as well, haven't you? Kamal in Morocco.
Yes. Good afternoon to everybody. My name is Kamal Labassi. I am first professor at the University of Shuaib Bukhari in Morocco, head of the geoscience and the remote sensing group in our university. I am also from 2018 the president of the African Association of Remote Sensing Environment. My background, I am a specialist in geoinformation sciences and remote sensing with the application, with a focus application on water management and marine application. This is all.
Right, thank you. And Labale you're in Senegal at the moment, or?
Yes, I live in Senegal. I'm now in Paris now at this moment, but for some days, I'm Labali Touré. I'm geographer, geometrician in. I'm a research professor at the University of Sine Saloum, El Hadji Ibrahima Niass in Kaolack, and I'm the head of the geomatics and climatology sectors within the environment, biodiversity, and sustainable development department. I'm also founder of a Geomatica company, and I'm the vice president of the network of African geomatics professionals. I'm very happy to be here and to share our experience and what in our network, what we are doing for African, for remote sensing and spatial sciences and technologies. Thank you very much.
That's great, and it's great you're all representing different organizations. We'll hear more about those as we go along. Just to say, if you have any questions at all, please don't be afraid to join in. It's a conversation, so we're just talking. Space in Africa, I mean, it's changing quite fast, and I guess it's also quite challenging as well as changing. Under the leadership of the African Union for the last 2 decades, the space sector has been growing in Africa. And we've had a number of interactions over the years on this. I see a number of people in the cafe who are active in developing these links. So from a few national programs in the early 2000s, are more recently guided by the African Space Strategy, which was published in 2019. We'll hear more about that. Growth is happening right across the continent. Strong focus is placed on developing capacity and capabilities to address continental scale problems. And now the African Outer Space Strategy is recognized as one of the flagships for Africa 2063, which is the long-term growth program. The strategy has the ambitious goal to develop an African space program within 5 years, and for this to be one of the top 10 globally inside 10 years. So I'm certainly interested to hear more about that. The plan sets out to use a mixture of government, commercial, and foundation funding, and importance is placed on the progression of a number of representative organizations, both at national level and continental level. Most recently, symbolized very strongly by the creation and opening the inauguration of the African Space Center, Space Agency in Cairo, which was inaugurated in January this year. So this is reinforced with many countries also establishing their own national programs. So again, I think one of the interesting things is the balance between national programs and the African continental program. There have been green shoots of collaboration for some time. Tidiane, you mentioned GMES and Africa, established to help develop expertise, make data available, drawn from the EU Copernicus program, which most people here will be very familiar with. And in addition to that, various other development activities have been launched by the European Commission. So given all this and this rapidly developing background, it seems very timely and very interesting to have a discussion around what is happening and to understand better how we can bridge the gap between Europe and Africa, and how our interest is particularly industry. So we're interested in establishing industrial relationships, industrial partnerships. But of course, in order to do that, we need to understand what is happening. And hopefully that can be very much a win-win situation. So I've mentioned the African Space Strategy, Tidiane, that was brokered, put forward by the African Union. Can you tell us a little bit about the space program, what the status is, what's envisaged? So, Tidiane.
Thank you very much, Jeff. You've said all already, yeah. And first of all, on behalf of the African Union Commission, would like to thank your organization, not only for inviting us for this coffee, but for the long-standing cooperation you've been or you had with, I would say, not only RC, but also with many other institutions in the continent. That being said, I would just remind that we do have two pieces. We have the African space policy, and we do also have the African space strategy. These are two different documents. The policy guiding the strategy, and the strategy shaping the key priority areas for programmatic. Therefore, I would say the implementation of the African space policy and strategy is going very well. We are talking about a continent made up of 55 countries. It is huge, more than 30 million square kilometers, with a lot of natural resources, more than 1 billion inhabitants. This is a huge market. Therefore, the needs are numerous. The market, the potentiality is huge. The African space policy and strategy come in time to tell African leaders that space can be and is even the critical pillar for the African 21st, 22nd century development. With space, we can save time, we can save money, we can be more efficient in the scenario development. Therefore, what we did for the implementation, and you mentioned in 2016, when the policy and strategy were adopted by the head of state and government of the 55 countries, the next step was to implement them. What we did, we look at three angles. The first angle was to establish the governance of the space in the continent. That is bringing us now to the African Space Agency. That will be the governing body. The second was, while we were developing the governance, to start demonstrating the capability of space through concrete programs. And thanks to the collaboration with the European Union, we did have, and we still have, GMES and Africa, which allowed us to use Copernicus data to address not only natural resources management, but also marine and coastal areas issues. As I told you, we do have more than 120 African institutions involved in this program, which is covering for the first time all the continents, North Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa altogether, 45 countries. In doing that, we are also conscious that the future of Africa will depend on two things: the academia and the private sector. The academia, we need to create the critical mass of African experts to be able to translate the policy and strategy into actions that will support the African citizens' needs. Therefore, trainings, capacity building, internship have been encouraged through several channels. The last point, the private sector, in the strategy of the space strategy, it is clear that the innovation comes from the private sector. Once the academia does the research and development, it's up to the private sector to translate or to transform the findings from research and development to innovation services addressing the priority of the citizens. As you can see, there are numerous files on which we've been working. We made some progress, but there are a lot of room for improvement. We, as a continent, we are a newcomer. We want to build on the success stories from other continents, but most importantly, we want to jump like we've jumped with the telephony systems. We, in Africa, we don't have the landlines covering all the continent, but you can go to any single small village, you'll find a mobile phone. Therefore, let's jump, let's learn from others, let's adapt into the African context, and let's move on. I will stop here. We'll have opportunity, but in a nutshell, the African Space Agency is a reality. The next step, it is to make it operational. The hosting agreement has been signed with Egypt. It will be in Cairo. The building is ready. The structure and financial implications have been adopted by the member state. Now we need to recruit. And again, I'm telling people to be a little bit patient. When you are talking about a continent, a huge organization like African Union Commission, you have to trust us, but the speed is not like when we are dealing with a simple, small institution. Therefore, we are on the very good track. In terms of programs, GMS is a very good success. It is a wonderful success. And honestly, let's tell the story with the Europeans through not only the European Commission, but through the private sector also and the academia. I'll stop here. Let's have time to go deeply. Thank you very much.
Yeah, sure. We can come back. Certainly interested to understand a bit more about the space agency and the relations with that. But let's explore a little bit the other organizations which are playing here. Certainly with RC, we have ERSC has worked with RC for some years now. What's the Kamal? You took over as president in RC a few years ago. What's RC now? What's it doing? Tell people. Assume people don't know anything about RC. So what is it, and what are you doing?
Once again, thank you, Jeff, for this opportunity given to RC to talk in this EOcafe. We are very happy to be there with this panel of participants. First of all, let me first give some word on RC as an organization. RC was established in 1992. Is one of the oldest African continental organization in the field of Earth observation and geospatial information. And our primary aims is to increase the awareness of the African government and their institution, the private sector, and the society at large about the empowering and enhancing benefit of developing, applying, and utilizing responsibly the product and services of Earth observation systems and geoinformation technology. So to make this goal achieved, we have one of the very important activity, which is our conference. Every 2 years from 1996, we organize one conference everywhere in Africa. We was in different countries in Africa. Just to tell you that our next conference will be in Côte d'Ivoire in 2024 in October, and perhaps it will be one opportunity to talk more and more between the cooperation between Europe and Africa in terms of private sector. Well, in our association, we are award and fully award that in one open society, it is rated that the business company and the private sector in general is behind a job creation, and that behind that constitute one locomotive for the creation of wealth in every country. So we are aware of the importance what on what can play the private sector for the development of one country. So as an NGO, our work is to to work on the awareness, especially on awarenesses. We have the opportunity to have, and we have proved to have with us as a partners, partners like the African Union Commission, UNICA, partners from industry like Airbus, private sector like ESRI, and some space agency like ESA, NASA, and JAXA. So we have a lot of partners that we can involve in our work and strengthen the networking between different players in Africa to make one very framework of cooperation between the two, let's say, the two continents. We have, as you said, the opportunity to work together in 2016 and to make one very big work by establishing this survey. We are working in 21 countries, and I think I think we reach something like 78 companies in Africa and 1,417 employees. So it was a very big work that we have done between us, and we can build on this experience and go forward to make more and more work in this sense. It's just to tell one last thing about the cooperation between the two continents, and I think it will be very important from the two continents to seize the cultural and historical relationship between the two continents, because there are a lot of relationship in history and culture between Europe and Africa, and we have to seize this opportunity entre these two people, these two continents, to build on cooperation between us in the future. And I can say also that us will be ready to work together with all partners and make this cooperation successful in the future. This is my intervention. I will be there. I will hear if there are another discussion on that. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Lovely, and thanks for reminding about the cooperation, the mapping that the industry that we did. We started off from our industry survey that we perform each year in Europe, and we couldn't do anything quite so ambitious, so complex, but we did the mapping together. We also organised the B2B networking at one of your conferences, so it'd be interesting to maybe explore further on that. So that's sort of the EO services sector, and RZ is really a mix of academic and industrial interest. Lovely, you're vice president of ARPAG, which is the geomatics professionals in Africa. Is there a distinction between academic and industrial, or how does ARPAG work? I'm not so familiar with ARPAG. You're still on mute.
Thank you very much, Jeff. I will at first thank you for the invitation to this webinar. And I will also thanks to the African Union Commission, and particularly Dr. Tidiane Ouattara, who support with great energy for the development of space in Africa. And the RPAG is a network of professional African in geomatics. In Africa, you have change of context and mentality, but especially of vision in context at the state level, but also at the continental level. the innovation is necessary, and the development of the continent cannot be without taking into account innovation as the development of space applications. We have many synergies. They are developing everywhere in Africa. Startups are born. Public organizations are born and grow. Young people are being formed. Schools on space and geomatics are developing in all over Africa. We are aware that is these challenges. We have set put the RPAG to promote initiatives and application of geomatics professionals, but also to network them to face the market, but also the problematics. And the vision of the RPAG is to make use of geomatics to provide solutions adapted to African states, but also is to be leading providers of geometric skills and solutions to African states. The network connect academics, the private sectors, decisions makers, startups around the development of application from space technology and sciences, but also to develop links and cooperation between Africa and Europe, and Africa and other continent. And RPAG is a young associations network. It's born in 2020, and we have today 100 members from many countries in Africa. And we have done many activities like trainings, like business business between companies in Africa. We work on spatial and geomatics, and we participate on many events in Africa to do the voice of youngs, of academics, but more to correct them before we have to work together. When I'm in Senegal, I have to connect with my friends of my colleagues from Ivory Coast, and I can't work singly in my corner to forget what my friends of Ivory Coast are doing, because Africa is for us one area, and we have to connect people between. And we are very happy to see today what we have the context. In many countries, we have special agency. In African Union, it has African Space Agency. It's very good, and we work in RPAG to connect them. To people know what is the application of space sciences and technologies for development. We have a new network, but we work for many ambitions. And today we have done 21 session trainings. We have done many activities in Abidjan, in Kigali, in Senegal, and we work many meetings to connect African people. We work on geometric sectors.
Excellent, excellent. So I guess the space strategy is very important for you. In Europe, the European Space Agency was set up with the goal to really develop upstream capability, and most of the activities downstream have been added in more recently. I think reading through the documents that there's a much stronger emphasis placed on exploitation and particularly the value of coming from Earth observation and other space technologies contributing to society. What will be sort of the approach from the in Africa regarding upstream, downstream? How will that be managed within the space agency? Will it deal with downstream, or is that left more to national organizations to deal with? What's the planning there? Maybe Tidiane.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. I would say this is a kind of questions we've been always facing. From the space policy and the space strategies perspectives, Africa should look at not only 2, but 3 segments.
Mm.
The space segment itself, Africa should be interested in that. The ground segment, meaning the infrastructures, Africa should be interested in that. The downstream segment, which is the service segment, Africa should be interested in that too. But let's prioritize depending on our immediate needs. Let's build the capacity and move step by step. What does it mean? From my own perspective, and which is shared by many other people, let's look at the downstreams, because the downstreams, with concrete action, demonstrating, for example, how space can reduce the death of fishermen, how space, Earth observation, I'm saying, can bring water quality, you know, how space can bring, etc., to the citizens' life on daily life, I would say. We are demonstrating that space is key. Then we can engage easily the decision makers on the 2 other segments, which is to provide Africa with very interesting infrastructure on the ground for data acquisition, for many other kind of things. And then why not to consider the space segment? Space is a universal common goal, common goods. We, Africa, should look at in 50, 100 years from today, we should be part of the worldwide nations taking the space as an asset to develop the Earth. We should do it strategically. We have to avoid duplications. Be something existing in Europe, let's avoid replicating here. That is clear. Let's see how we collaborate together in win-win situation. But nothing impedes Africa to build satellites that is addressing its own needs. Therefore, our vision is a global vision, an integrated vision. And secondly, African scientists, we are talking about the nation pride. It is important that our scientists also be given the opportunity to demonstrate what they're capable to do. And the last point, we can talk about that later if needed. Space arena is today governed by treaties and conventions where Africa didn't take part. We were not there when they were signing the treaties. We were not there where they were signing the conventions. If we don't start being interested in discussing these matters, Africa may find its hand locked tight completely, because when you want to go to space, you have to respect the treaties. And if the treaties are not addressing our interests, we can be stuck. Therefore, it is a global picture. Scientists, legal experts, lawyers, communication people. I used to say that space, it is a package. And Africa should be everywhere, and we need to train the critical mass. It is important. The capacity building is the backgrounder of our success in the space arena. Therefore, Jeff, talking about the streams, Africa should be interested in space segment, ground infrastructure segment, and then the service delivery we call downstreams. In a nutshell, this is what we have to say, but we have to approach it in a step-by-step way to get there.
Yeah, and I mean it's very important to give that balance and to ensure that it's delivering for society broadly. I guess you'll have a policy of just retour as operated by the European Space Agency. Is that will that be part of the bedrock of the Space Agency?
The African Space Agency, for example, is a coordination body. I want to make it clear. It is even in its status that the African Space Agency will rely on the national space agencies and regional space organization. Don't forget, we do have regional bodies. For example, AfSA Mardi for Earth observation. AfSA Mardi, which is located in Kenya, is covering 20 countries. Okay. It is easier to build on their success stories. You do have AfriGIS, for example, in Nigeria. And you do have, and as my brother Labali said, you have the young Africans coming with new spirits. The private sector can be created in Dakar or in Abidjan or in Kinshasa, but they have the willingness to work together.
Yeah.
Therefore, the African Space Agency will not be exactly the same as the European Space Agency. They are very different in terms of statute. The European Space Agency, they do have their member states that are different from the European Commission member states. The African Space Agency, de facto, all African Union member states are members of the African Space Agency. This is why the African Space Agency is an organ of the African Union. The seed budget will come from the African Union. Then the programs with partners can come with other funding. Okay. Therefore, it is very different. And the African Space Agency will receive its instructions, guidance from the African Union Commission, which is not the case of the European Space Agency. At the governance level, they are very different. Now, at the programmatic and scientific level, yes, there are a lot of similarities. It is normal because space is a cross-cutting fire. We do want to learn from them, but you can be surprised. The European Space Agency will learn a lot from African researchers in terms of in situ data. That is critical. Secondly, in terms of business development in Africa, it is very different from Europe. Very, very different. And that is something also the European private companies, private sector, should be aware of. Doing business in Africa, I'm talking about a sustainable business, not a one-shot deal business. You have to build the trustee. You have to build your network. But be at the national level, be at the continental level, the willingness is to see African private sector, African stakeholders in the driver's seats. People should support us. People should accompany us. But we are no more interested in that people tell us what to do and leave the day after. Therefore, we will have time to talk during the coffee. You know, when you are drinking coffee, you are excited. You can say everything. Different. Therefore, let open the game and the discussion here, because one of the points I really want to underline here, because we may have some private companies from Europe online.
Hope so.
It is to look at how we build strong and sustainable relations. In Africa, don't put money in front. If you put money in front, you are failing. Let's put people in front. Let's put people in the middle. Let's put people at the end. You will see the cultural issues are coming quickly here. Africans, they don't change a lot. It is very difficult for us to change regularly like we do in Europe or in North America. In North America, you can change, okay? If you come somewhere and you have a house, let's say, okay, you can even change the year, the following year. In Africa, even if you have a house, that is not good. You have the tendency to try to repair it, to stay there. It is in our blood not to change because we want to change. That's to be taken into account. Secondly, the opportunities we are talking, the European companies and American companies, even Asian companies, they have the tendency to say, okay, if we do that, we'll pay for it. Sometimes you have to create opportunities, and they know that. If I don't know that there is a solution for my problem, why are you asking me money? And you come, you just say, I will do it. Who will pay for it? Nobody will pay for it because nobody asked you to come. But if you strategize, if you build the case, you understand really the needs and the players, the key players in the system, you may find yourself in the very good opportunity where you are telling people, I have that to propose to you. You can adapt it, but it will resolve this problem, and they will trust you. Then you will see them looking for money to fund the initiative that is supporting their needs. Not the contrary, where you have a call for proposals, people, they just apply. After the call for proposals, they go back home. If you position yourself as a company standing with Africans, you may make a lot of opportunities in Africa. These are the kind of tricks we can share during this kind of coffee session.
Yeah. No, that so trust, long-term thinking, partnerships are the sort of messages that you're giving there. Lavely, you've gone through the process of setting up a company and are working as Geomatica. What's your perception on working with European companies? How would you view things, and how would you advise or look for partnerships, and what would you expect? You're still on mute.
Sorry. Thank you. Thanks for this question. For me, the most thing to do is to know what is the needs of people, what is the need of decision makers, and what is the need of final users. Because the technologies is very important, but it not sense if they don't serve no one or everywhere. It's very important today to see what is first the needs of people and how to create, to develop solutions and product to solve the problems from people. As the first, it's not so easy, because when you go to the decision makers, you don't know, some of them don't know what is remote sensing, what is geomatics, what is drones, what is photogrammetry, what is AI. But I think that the use is to discuss, to converse, and to show the real solutions. It's not just to talk in the area, but to show what is the demonstration, what is the output, what is the impact of your solution to promote, and so to change and to work for the impact, because people want to see the impact of their life. And at the beginning of Geomatica, we work first to have a demonstration, a small demonstration for people, and they know, and they learn, and they love step by step. And the ambition will be adapted. The solution will be adapted from the level of people and the end users. If we don't do it, I think that geomatics is beautiful, but it can be beautiful just for you. And people for who want the solution, they don't tell them. It's important to correct, to adapt the solutions, the tools from people and the decision makers.
Okay. And in terms of, so a lot of, you're saying is come with solutions, not ideas. But what about the academic links and reinforcing academic links, which are important from a research point of view, but are also important for developing the expertise and the workforce who will be executing here. So what are the priorities there, and how are AfSA approaching and supporting that, Kamal? Just a reminder to everybody, if you've got any questions, please just pop them into the chat. We're getting to the point where if you have questions, I'm happy to address them. Sorry, Kamal, carry on.
Yes, very good. Okay, before I just want to bring up something else, because Tijan was mentioned the program of GMES and Africa, but also there are another initiative is in going now in Africa, which is the EOAfrica initiative from the European Space Agency. And I will come back on this initiative because I can say to you one concrete success story from Morocco.
Mm-hmm.
But I can say that we could be proud of the development of the continent. I am witness to one experience of 20 years since the launch of the first project, which is a Tiger project in the beginning of 20 in 2000, I think, and 4. And several things was happened from this initiative. I think we have to build on what we have already exist in Africa. And I can say that we have a lot of competence, a lot of skills from the beginning of this century, with the program and initiative like Puma, AfSA, and now. So there are a lot of things. So go back to this initiative of EOAfrica, because in we have the experience. I really love and appreciate the approach of this initiative. With this initiative, we are beginning with the first phase, which is the RD, the EOAfrica RD, and we will moving for another phase, which is the EOAfrica National Incubator, and then another phase, which is EOAfrica Explorer. And we have the opportunity to be there in this initiative. And one of my students who is involved with us in this initiative in EOAfrica National Incubator, he developed some tools, and now he create his private company, and he worked with the other European company, and I saw some participant with us in this EOcafe. There is a very let's say good cooperation between a young company here in Morocco and some company in Europe who work in Saudi Arabia on tools developed inside of EOAfrica. And this is, I think, one of very concrete, let's say, action that we can build on it to be offered. So there are some initiatives, some programs, scientific program, and inside of this scientific program, academia and research can develop some tools to be experienced in the reality. And I just give you one concrete action. One student working with us on the EOAfrica, and now he worked with the European company on one site in Saudi Arabia. This is what I can. what I can tell on the contribution, let's say, of the academia to build human capacity for in the future.
Okay. I mean, it'd be interesting to explore further, but I don't think we can go too much detail there. But what can we do further to help bridge these to bridge between, particularly between companies, but between other players within the other stakeholders, other players, in order to maybe enable businesses to come together? What are the opportunities to do that? Clearly, there are workshops, there are events where there can be physical meetings. There will be virtual meetings as well, but that's less effective in getting to know people, which is so important. What can you sort of tell us about opportunities to bring people together? Who wants to? Labali, you're nodding. Do you want to comment?
Okay, thank you. For me, is very important to bring. And this question is very important, and you have to have beginning at my previous speech about disease, and for me, the opportunities are here. And the one things we lack is how to take these opportunities, how to exploit these opportunities, and how to go from input to output. And at first, it's very important the adequacy of data or of solutions and the needs. The second is taking into account the need of end user, because it's two things. You have the solutions, it's one thing, but you have the end users. And the end users, I think in Africa, when you want to work on spatial companies in Africa, you have at first to know what is the local context, what is the political, economical, cultural context of Africa, and for the country for your work. The technologies can be the same, but the application is different from one space in Africa. And you have to work about the adaptability of solution to the technological, social, and political context of end users. It's very important. I have many experience about this. Sometimes you show something is very nice for you, and when you go to people, oh, it's good. What can I do to give to have them? If you don't have money, you don't have electricity, it's very difficult. You just have every time to adapt what you do for us and what is their needs every time. And the next question level is to develop collaboration between data producers, users, and decision makers. You have to have a permanent dialogue between actors from the last level to the top level. And you have to go to ownership by stakeholders. It's very important. And to work about the sustainability of your approaches of tools. Because sometimes you develop something, it can be good just for 1 year. And for the next year, it's not good. And some people can take your solutions. I think that to do the solution sustainable, you work to connect them for the sustainability from the decision makers and from the end users. And the context is very important. And the opportunities is to have data in Africa. I think that in RPAG, we work to discuss with our actors about data. We have many data in Africa, but they are not on the same level and the same method. And data is important for the decisions. And today, the challenge is how we can give the best data to the decision makers for the best decisions or for the best solutions to people in a village.
Yeah.
In a village, in your regions, in your capitals, in your country, and in Africa. And you come to work about the updating data.
Yeah. So
yes, and it is about the raising awareness and training of decision makers, because it's very important about the training, because I think that in Africa we have many youngs, and today training is very important for people to show more about the opportunities, because the space application have a big feature in Africa. When you go to many of our country, the space development is new, and people have many opportunities. And today we work about them, but I think that the political level is fundamental. The continental level is fundamental. And when I see what African Commission or what many countries in Africa are doing to promote, to encourage political actors to take the parts of space in public, for me is very important, and the future can be very good for actors. And because the challenge is to develop training, the finance, about the research, because it's very important today to work from connect and for the opportunities. The opportunities are there, but we have to work to find them. And if you want to have best solutions, it's important to take the place of the end users and the decision makers, and the context is very important, how to married technologies, end users, and local populations.
Mm-hmm. So I guess there's room there for pilots and demonstration activities in order to overcome some of the barriers with the users, and some of the barriers are quite complex, I think, which come down to sort of the governance structure, the local conditions, which is what you were part of what you were saying. How, Tidiane, how then can the African Union Commission help with this, help overcome these barriers and help with these problems?
If you know the position, the role of the African Union Commission in the space arena, we are advocating and we are promoting and we are coordinating. We are inviting European partners. We are talking about Europe-Africa today, to change the narrative. They have to change the narrative vis-a-vis of Africa. I will not go on what my brother Labali said to avoid duplications and repetition. Space, mainly Earth observation, it is not international aid. No, it is business. It supports international development. It supports all kinds of actions we want, but we have to see it as a business. Business for scientists, business for private sector. Therefore, Africa should be seen as an opportunity. It is a huge market. Changing the narrative, it changes the game. What does it mean? When you go to someone helping the person, it is different. Your behavior is different when you go to the person to do business in win-win situation. This is why we say they have to change the narrative in Europe. Secondly, Africa is open to many other players now. People are coming in the space arena. Africa will offer to the best. Yes, Europe has been our traditional partner. It's time now to pull back a little bit and to re-strategize, to look at how to afford this new Africa where digitalization becomes very key in any decision-making process. Changing the narrative, what does it mean? Instead of private companies coming and making profit and going back, they have interest to look at Africa as a place to be. Why? The population, 60% is young. This population is a huge labor resource for these private companies. The salaries can be affordable easily. But these talented young people on their continents may help a company to make a difference. 3, I will tease a little bit Kamal. The guy that has been trained under EO for Africa should come back to Africa. I made the exercise. I'm coming back to Africa. I came back to Africa 7 years ago, and I'm very happy. If I knew I would come 10, 50, 20 years ago, but perhaps the momentum was not appropriate. But let's train our young people. Let's ask them to come and contribute, or let's ask them to stay and contribute. And you, private sector, with the improvement of the connectivity in Africa, you don't need your labor market to be with you in Europe. Yeah. From Africa, they can work. Let's change the narrative. That is our new slogan. I will end to say that Africa is the new El Dorado for space business, not only Earth observation. But Earth observation, I told you, 30 million square kilometers to manage. Thanks to EO, that is feasible. 1 billion inhabitants to provide with data and information, as Lably said. This is a huge market. Changing the narrative means to see Africa as an opportunity. And Africans are no more believing in the fact that Europe is just coming and helping us and going back. No. Why don't we play openly the game then? It is a business. It should be a win-win situation. Let's learn from each other. Let's build on our success stories. Kamal Labasi said that it is true, Africa and Europe, we have a lot to share. What brings us together is stronger than what divides us. Let's think of that, because these two continents are condemned. I used to say when it rains in Abidjan, Paris is wet, and vice versa. Because what happened in Africa, the first continent to be touched, it is Europe. Vice versa. Why don't we strengthen that relationship, historical relationship, commercial relationship, political relationship? Let's seize the opportunity. Let's change the narrative. Let our young people working together. Thank you.
That's a great message to finish on. Kamal, I see you have to leave for a course, so we'll close anyway. Thank you very much for being with us. I hope that we can have some opportunities to participate in the conferences. You mentioned the conference next year. I don't know if there's a geomatics conference coming up as well, but clearly we should be. We would wish to be aware of what's happening and look at those opportunities to bring the different players together, that they can meet and talk and get to know each other and change the narrative between them. So that seems excellent. So maybe offline we can pursue that further. I see we've gone on to the next slide. So thank you very much for being with us today. I think it's hopefully the start of a further dialogue, or perhaps not the start, a continuation of a dialogue that we started earlier, and maybe we can now reinforce. So thank you very much for joining us, Tidiane, Labeli, and Kamal.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Hope to meet and talk with you again soon. Next EOcafe is in 2 weeks' time, 4 weeks' time. Sorry, in 2 weeks it's a holiday, so we decided that as a lot of people are affected by it, that we won't do an EOcafe in 2 weeks. So there will be the next one will be on the 16th of November, and it's looking at development of skills. there's been quite a bit of work done looking at how this strategies for producing new skills and additional practitioners of some traditional skills. So how do we produce the skills in order to achieve the goals of the EU space strategy is our topic. So hopefully see you all then.